You read one message like it holds your whole future. Then you reread the silence around it. That tight feeling in love does not come out of nowhere. And it is not proof that you are too much. If relationships make you feel calm one day and shaky the next, this is for you. What you call overthinking is often your heart trying to predict safety. That is why small changes can feel strangely huge. A slower reply can feel louder than a sweet promise. A mixed signal can stay with you all day. By the end, you will understand what this anxiety is really protecting. And you will see why it keeps showing up, even when you want to relax. The beautiful part is that anxious love usually makes more sense than people think. Most relationship anxiety is not about being dramatic. It is about uncertainty landing on a nervous system that learned to scan for emotional weather before storms arrived. So when someone feels warm then distant, your body often reacts before your mind can explain anything clearly. You may call it overreacting later. But in the moment, it feels more like trying to catch your balance on moving ground. Here is what is really going on. Anxious feelings in relationships usually grow where closeness feels precious, but consistency does not feel guaranteed. That can begin in childhood, but it also grows through adult experiences that teach you love can change quickly. A partner who is affectionate, then confusing, can train your body to watch harder than before. A breakup that arrived without warning can do the same. Even one season of being misled can make future love feel less solid. So your anxiety is often not asking, do they like me? It is asking, can I relax and still be safe here? That question changes everything. Because when safety feels uncertain, your attention becomes hyper-focused on every tiny relational clue. You notice tone shifts. You notice pauses. You notice when their energy feels half an inch different. And people around you may miss how exhausting that constant translating becomes. This is why anxious love can feel so lonely. You are not only feeling your feelings, you are also monitoring theirs, managing the distance and trying to prevent a loss before it happens. That is not weakness. It is vigilance shaped by emotional unpredictability. There is also a painful misunderstanding many people carry. They assume anxiety means they love too deeply or chose the wrong person every single time. Sometimes that is true. But often the deeper issue is that uncertainty itself has become fused with attraction, intensity, and emotional importance. In other words, your body may have learned that love feels most real when it feels least settled. That is why calm attention can feel unfamiliar. And unfamiliar love is easy to misread as boring, distant, or lacking spark. This is the twist most people miss. Anxiety is not always attached to the person. Very often, it is attached to the meaning your body gives to closeness, distance, and unpredictability. You can care about someone sincerely and still be reacting mostly to old alarms. That matters because it means every strong feeling is not a perfect measure of relationship truth. Sometimes the delayed text feels enormous because it touches an older fear of being forgotten. Sometimes a partner needing space feels terrifying because space once meant abandonment, not healthy breathing room. Sometimes you ask for reassurance, get it, and still cannot settle for long. That does not mean reassurance never helps. It means anxiety usually wants certainty, and certainty is something no relationship can provide every minute. So the cycle keeps returning. You feel unsure, then seek closeness, then feel temporary relief, then fear the next moment of distance. That loop can make love feel like holding your breath between messages. If you have ever felt embarrassed by how much one small interaction changes your whole mood, this is about you. Because anxious attachment is not just fear of losing someone. It is often fear of what losing connection says about your worth, lovability, and place in another person's heart. That is why the pain feels personal so quickly. A small shift outside can trigger a deep story inside. Maybe the story says, I am easy to leave. Maybe it says, I have to earn steady love. Maybe it says, if I stop trying, I will disappear from their mind. These stories usually do not arrive as words first. They arrive as urgency. They arrive as chest tension, refreshing your phone, replaying a conversation, or reaching for reassurance you already received yesterday. And this is the beautiful part. Once you see the story beneath the spiral stops feeling so random. You begin to understand that your anxiety is trying to solve an emotional wound with constant surveillance. But surveillance cannot create safety. It can only create the temporary feeling that you are doing something. Real safety usually grows differently. It grows through consistency, clarity, emotional honesty, and your ability to stay connected to yourself while loving someone else. Notice that last part. Many anxious relationship patterns are not only about needing the other person, they are also about slowly abandoning yourself to keep the connection alive. You become more attentive to their mood than your own needs. You shape your tone carefully. You hesitate to ask direct questions. You downplay hurt so you do not seem difficult. You call your needs unreasonable before anyone else gets the chance. Then resentment and fear quietly grow together. This is where anxiety gets louder. Because the less securely you stand inside yourself, the more every outside signal seems powerful enough to define you. A healthy relationship does not remove all uncertainty, but it does make uncertainty smaller than trust. That difference matters more than people realize. In an unhealthy dynamic, you are often trying to decode someone's sincerity from inconsistent behavior. In a healthier one, you still have questions sometimes, but the overall pattern brings your body back down. That is an important distinction. Your anxiety may be old, but some relationships also intensify it because they are genuinely unclear. So the goal is not to blame yourself for every anxious feeling. It is to ask a better question. Is this anxiety mostly about my history, or is this dynamic actually making safety harder to feel? That question is powerful because it protects you from two common mistakes. The first is assuming every fear means the relationship is wrong. The second is assuming every fear is your fault, even when someone is giving you mixed signals. Both extremes keep you confused. A more honest approach says, my feelings deserve compassion, and this relationship still needs to be evaluated clearly. Here's a small everyday example. One person says they miss you, then disappears all weekend without explanation. Your body panics. Part of that panic may come from old wounds, but part of it may also be responding accurately to inconsistency happening in the present. Self-awareness is not about explaining away red flags. It is about separating your fear from the facts, so both can be seen properly. If this pattern sounds familiar, you are not alone, and I would love to know which part feels most true for you. Another hidden reason anxiety grows in relationships is that hope can make ambiguity feel bearable for too long. When you really want something to work, your mind becomes generous with confusing behavior. You fill in blanks. You focus on potential. You replay the sweetest moments and use them to explain the cold ones. That does not mean you are naive. It means longing is persuasive, especially when connection feels rare or deeply meaningful. So here's something to remember. Anxious love often clings not only to the person, but to the version of the relationship that appears in brief, beautiful flashes. Those flashes can feel intoxicating. They suggest what could be, which makes what is harder to accept. And when reality does not match the promise, anxiety rushes in to close the gap. It tells you to try harder, to be softer, to be easier, to send one more message, to prove your value more clearly. But love usually becomes safer when you stop auditioning for it. The real turning point is not becoming less caring. It is becoming less willing to betray your own peace in order to keep closeness alive. That is a warm kind of strength. It says, I can love deeply without handing my stability over to every mood shift. And yes, that takes practice. Because when anxiety is familiar, calm can feel suspicious at first. A steady person may seem less magnetic simply because they are not triggering your chase response. But steadiness has its own kind of intimacy. It lets your personality return. It lets your humor return. It lets your sleep return. It lets love become something you experience, not something you constantly monitor. This does not happen in one perfect moment. It happens through small choices that teach your mind and body a new definition of closeness. You pause before assuming the worst. You ask direct questions instead of building cases from fragments. You notice when you are seeking reassurance for regulation rather than real information. You stop romanticizing confusion as depth. You pay attention to patterns, not just chemistry. And when someone cannot meet you with basic consistency, you let that information matter. That last part is huge. Because one reason anxiety survives is that we often keep negotiating with what hurts us. We stay available to people who stay undecided. We keep trying to earn the clarity that should have been offered freely. And slowly, our self-trust gets replaced by obsession. Here is the gentler truth. The real reason you feel anxious in relationships is often that part of you still believes love must be secured through vigilance, through effort, through anticipation, through self-abandonment, dressed up as devotion. But healthy love asks for something braver. Presence instead of panic. Discernment instead of decoding. Honesty instead of performing. And self-respect strong enough to notice when your body keeps sounding an alarm for a reason. So if you feel anxious in relationships, do not reduce yourself to needy or broken. See the deeper intelligence in what your body is trying, however imperfectly, to protect. Then meet that protection with clearer standards, steadier choices, and more compassion for the part of you that learned love could vanish. You are not behind because you feel deeply. You are simply being invited to build a version of love where closeness no longer costs you your center. And when that lesson begins to land, everything changes. You stop asking only who wants you. You start asking who feels emotionally safe to love. You stop chasing every spark. You start trusting the relationships that let you exhale. That is not settling. That is finally choosing a love your nervous system does not have to survive. If you want more reflections like this, stay with me here. And if this brought language to something you have felt for a long time, subscribing helps you find the next conversation when you need it most.